Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Patricia Capella, Conference Manager with Clarion Events. Thank you so much for joining us today for our exciting and informative webcast series, Tribal Gaming and the New Normal with Victor Rocha. Before I introduce Victor, I would like to go over some housekeeping items to keep in mind. All audience members are on listen-only mode, which means you are muted. We will be monitoring audience engagement on the dashboard and do encourage you to participate by using the question pane. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar and you will receive an email with a copy of the recording so that you may listen to and refer back at any time. This webinar, as well as others in our series, will also be made available on our website, IndianGamingTradeshow.com, under the Education tab in the coming week. Now, without further delay, let me introduce Victor, Conference Chairman with the National Indian Gaming Association and editor of Pechanga.net. Victor, take it away.
Thank you, Patty. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Victor Rocha. I'm the conference chairman for the National Gaming Association, and I'm also the editor for Pechanga.net. I'd like to start off today's webcast with a quote from Joseph Kalt, co-director of the Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development. 1 month ago on May 8th, he said this: "There's not a single casino in the United States open today, and all tribal businesses are closed. Native Americans' tribes' tax base has been cut literally to zero, and tribal governments don't have money to run health clinics or child protective services. While state and local governments are also in trouble, at least they have a tax base, but tribes are really struggling because their tax base has been wiped out." Now, I use this quote because I want to give context to today's discussion on the reopening of our casinos. I want to remind everyone that tribal gaming for us is a means to an end. And that end is cultural preservation. That end is a compassionate government that provides social services for our children and education for our youth and the promise of a brighter future for our families and elders. And as Chairman Stevens always says, tribal gaming is taxed 100%. And he's absolutely right. Tribal gaming provides essential revenue to tribal governments, and without that revenue, it's hard to run a government. And with that in mind, I would like to start today's discussion on the business of reopening and the new normal. My guests today are the tip of the spear in tribal gaming. I'm very fortunate to have them. You know, when you put these conferences, these webinars together, you know, you always have an idea of who you want and what you want. And I was very fortunate. Everyone that I asked, I got the people that I wanted, and they all said yes the very first time. So I'm very grateful for that. My first guest, Matt Morgan, is not only the chairman of the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association, but the director of gaming affairs for the Chickasaw Nation, the Division of Commerce. And you guys run like one of the biggest casinos in the world, right, Matt?
Correct, yeah, Winstall World Casino.
Wow. Melanie Benjamin, my dear friend, is the chief executive of the Mille Band of Ojibwe Indians from Minnesota. Her tribe owns and operates 2 very successful casinos in Minnesota. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you.
And now, and last but definitely not least, my dear friend Greg Sarris is the chairman of the Federated Indians of Graton, Rancheria. His tribe owns and operates one of the most beautiful and successful casinos in Northern California. He's also been a close and personal friend of mine for over 20 years. Greg, welcome.
Good morning.
Good to see you guys. Good to see everyone. Really, thank you. So, you know what? I want to break this webcast into 3 parts. The first part, I'd like to talk about the shutdown. And then we'll talk a little bit about the quarantine, and then probably the most important part, let's talk about the reopening. So, you know, this question is to all of you. You know, when did you decide to close, and how hard was it to make this decision? Melanie, you go first. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. We closed our facilities on March 16th. And prior to that, we had been watching what was going on in the state of Minnesota and also in the world, as everyone else was, I'm certain. And as we were looking, we talked about what really is important here, the safety of our community or continuing with the revenue. And we did a lot of research to make sure that when the decision, we knew the decision had to be made, we just didn't know when. And we were actually the first casinos, the first tribal government in the state of Minnesota to shut down. And we were fortunate that we have a very good relationship with our governor and our lieutenant governor. And so we were having daily calls with the governor's office, and they were providing us instant information, whatever was going on in the state. We got that on a daily basis. And so we really looked at the data, and we also talked about what happens if we do shut down? How are we going to manage providing services to our people? But at the end of the day, on March 16th, we said we had to close because we had to do what all we could do to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Wow. Matt, in that same vein, I think, what Melanie brings up a really important detail here with, she was in a state with a governor that was really hands-on with the tribes. And I think in your state, it was a little different with your governor. Can you explain how that worked out with you guys?
Yeah, we have a little bit of a issue right now with the governor, and so the communication is not there in the way it should be, and that has hindered some of our efforts. Luckily, we do have a lot of good relationships within state agencies and a lot of frontline workers at tribes that do a great job. So we relied on a lot of those primary resources internally, but just like Chief Executive Benjamin, the first casino, we have 128 here casinos in Oklahoma. The first one shut down on March the 15th, and by March the 22nd, all 128 had voluntarily shut down. So within that 1 week, they felt like it was necessary given the data that they were seeing coming in. And that is a little bit different than what the state did. The state did a safer at home proclamation starting in April. And so tribes are really on the forefront and leaders, along with several municipalities here in Oklahoma, at looking at the data and making those tough decisions to try to shut down everything they could to make sure that, they were doing their part in trying to, flatten this curve that we've had during this pandemic. So, really glad to hear that, other states and tribes have a better relationship right now with their governor, but unfortunately that situation just does not exist right now.
Although, Matt, I did notice that, a lot of other part of the legislature in Oklahoma did step up too. I think it was really heartening to see different politicians and the Attorney General and people like that stepping up to fill that void. Although it's not surprising, nor should it be surprising to anyone who's been following Indian country to see that even in the middle of a crisis, the politics doesn't end. Greg, with yours, yours is interesting too. You're up in Northern California. What was it like for you? Now, how was the COVID affected your community, and what did it mean for your tribe?
Well, again, we talked on the 15th of March and then closed on the 17th. And I'm sure, as with other tribes, it was a major scramble where myself, along with the tribal council and the casino management, had big decisions to make. The scary thing, as we both all know, is that we didn't know how long this was going to go on. I mean, are we going to be closed indefinitely? What does that mean? And so we were sort of playing it by ear, and we had to think, okay, how are we going to take care of all our team members? Are we going to be able to continue to finance all our tribal government programs? And it was a huge issue. We luckily kind of we have a good relationship here, we do, with the governor of California, and I think he's done a pretty good job with California Indians, making an effort to recognize our history and been sensitive to our issues. But it was a tough thing. And again, going back to the politics, Victor, as you said, they never go away. I mean, the press kept calling me, and all they kept saying is, how much money are you going to lose? How much money are you going to lose, right? And I had only one response. It's not about losing money. It's about saving lives.
Can you believe that, Greg? So how much money were you losing? Just kidding. Can you believe those people?
A lot, Victor, a
Well,
lot.
you know, and Greg, you know, listen, you bring up a very important question, you know what I mean, which is money. I mean, you know, it's a means to an end, like I said, you know, but it's not, you know, the main thing and important. The main thing is, you know, when you go and you stand in front of your people, when you stand in front of your tribe, you know, they want to know, they want assurances and stuff like, and you know, one of the things that I've been telling people, I've been having conversations is, you know, I'm in a very fortunate position because I'm a member of a tribe with strong leadership. And while this country was still trying to figure out what was going on, my tribe was providing leadership and you know, helping tamp down that anxiety and stuff like that. And I think as a leadership role, you know, that is your job, is to provide that solace and comfort for your people in times of need. And it's just like our ancestors did, you know, 100, 200 years ago, you know. And so and that's how, you know, people keep count of success and defeat, I guess, is that monetary. You know, just a real quick question. So how many, we understand the cultural, all the social services stopped or went down to a minimum. So how many employees were unemployed? You know, Matt, let me take this one. So in the state of Oklahoma, how many people were sidelined during this?
So about a quarter of the population of Oklahoma, last data I looked at, were filing for unemployment. You know, significant numbers out there. You know, having to move over to unemployment, unfortunately. And I say that to contrast it with tribes. Tribal employment. You know, for large parts of our tribal operators, were sent home, but they were sent home with paychecks. You know, no one was going into the unemployment line. Now, unfortunately, this pandemic has lasted so long that some of the employees have had to move on to unemployment. But I mean, we're talking, you know, less than 5% of employees across tribal governments here that have had to look outside of that. And so tribes are taking on these expenses, and as the chairman stated, you know, we didn't know how long it was going to take. We knew what was in the bank, and we knew how long that was going to last. But it was such a, you know, community, such a family organizations that it was so important for tribal leaders to make sure that, you know, while they could not be staying, you know, coming to work anymore, they were still getting those paychecks sent to them, you know. And I think that made such a big difference for so many families within Oklahoma to not have to worry about, you know, where they were going to get those revenues to pay the rent, to buy the groceries, to make sure utilities stayed on. You know, across the board, that couldn't be said everywhere. Like I said, you know, going on for 6, 7, 8 weeks at a time. But, you know, first, I don't think I heard of anyone getting furloughed for the first 5 weeks of the pandemic, which is just unheard of. And to the chairman's point, you know, that cash, while it's very important to sustain the tribe, you know, they felt like these immediate needs overrode those longer term projects and made sure that people didn't go without.
You know, that's a very salient point. I know, Greg, with yours, that was a big issue too. You know, when you came out and you made your statement of that, you know, not one employed would be laid off and that we're going to tighten our belt. And that was a really powerful statement that went out to the press and to the media, Greg. Was that a difficult choice for you?
You know, I've been the chairperson here for 28 years, Victor, and this has been one of the most difficult times. As Matt suggested, and you said too, how am I going to take care of not only 1,500 tribal members, but how am I going to take care of well over 2,000 team members and their families during this? I had 4,000 people to take care of. How am I going to do it? And as Matt suggested, there's money in the bank, but there's only so much. And if it's not going in and it's only going out, how long? But what we decided, and I can tell you, I'm sure that not how much money necessarily we lost, but the insurance just for our team members here, all of them have the Kaiser Gold Cadillac plan. They pay nothing out of their paycheck.
Right.
It costs me $24 million a year. And so that and the programs, we did not lay off anybody. I tried to keep everybody on here until May 1st and then furloughed the hourly people. I paid them all the way through May 1st, making sure that the stimulus bump would be in their unemployment checks that they could get once they're furloughed. So day by day, trying to do the best thing we could, always thinking, gosh, do I have to borrow money? What am I going to do? But it was very stressful, and I think we did the responsible thing, and so far so good.
Well, Greg, I think everyone in gaming had to deal with this issue, and I think it drives home that point again too, that this situation would have been infinitely worse if we haven't had gaming for as long as we had. And now, Greg, I mean, you haven't had it as long as everyone. I think you've 10 years or something like that.
Not even 6.5, Victor. Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
just time goes by. So you're still trying to dig out of that hole after we both know your journey. So let's talk about the shutdown real quick. Now I know I drove by my casino a couple times, and it was surreal to see this beautiful mansion to success. I mean, maybe I should even use that word, but this beautiful edifice to success that we have built, and to see it shut down and to see the barricades in front, was there I mean, that's not even a fair question to ask if you felt it was going to go. But so what in real briefly, what was it like for you to be shut down?
You said the word surreal. I remember, since we've only been open a short time, I remember, Victor, Matt, and Melanie, that walking around 2 nights before we opened, and I was with a general manager, and he said to me, take a look around, you'll never see the casino like this again. Little did we know that COVID would come. And to come into this place and walk around and still walk around at night, especially when all the machines were off, it was a ghost town. In fact, some of our security people said they were seeing ghosts. It was very scary.
The ghost of COVID-19. Wow. Yeah. That's
heartbreaking. It was sort of like we have the parking lot and everything. To see it empty, it was sort of like the end of the world.
Greg, it felt like that. It really felt like that, and especially during the middle of it. In May, when we really didn't know how far this was going to take us, and we went through all of April, and then May comes, and no one was really opening in the very beginning. There was talk of it, and this actually leads into the good question about reopening. Greg, you haven't. In California, a lot of the casinos are open right now. And in the last week since we had broadcast, half the industry is open. Las Vegas is open right now. And, have you guys watched have you guys been watching the Las Vegas opening? Have you been following any of this on Chunga.net? So Greg, I noticed of all the casinos you haven't opened yet. Is there a reason why you have waited longer than the other ones? Now, everyone is open. You had the choice. So you, as a tribal leader of your, why have you waited longer than everyone else in the industry?
Okay, well, the governor, as you are well aware, Victor, basically said to all of us that we could open around the 8th. That was the time, and that's around the time everybody did. But there was a kind of a lockdown here in Sonoma County, and we thought we would be compliant to an extent with the lockdown. Nobody understanding that coming into this casino is like coming into the brave new world. I mean, we are the safety measures. If public schools and malls could have the safety measures in place that this casino and other California Indian casinos have in place, they could all be open. I mean, It was just coming here today. I mean, they're practicing. I'm interrogated, the chairman at the front door. I have a thermal machine on me. I'm asked questions. I'm told to keep my mask on. I mean, who's the boss here? But they're doing the right thing.
Wow. Yeah. And that really brings a great question of health and safety standards. And I think, if we can do anything today that would be very helpful to Indian country, I think is to help Indian country understand where we've been and our ability to share this information. Melanie, so when you decided to open up, how did this process begin? You guys, obviously, I think everyone does a very similar that I noticed. We get together, we say, okay, we're looking, we have our finger up, waiting for the weather to see if it's changing. How did this work for you, and where did you get your health and safety standards?
So we, of course, were following all the data in the state of Minnesota and our surrounding areas as well. We were looking at what are the number of cases, how have they been increasing, and so we paid attention to that every day, and we're still doing that. And then we initially thought, well, when the state of Minnesota is at a certain level, we will then give ourselves 2 weeks to see what that means. And then we will make the decision when that time for us would be to open. But it kind of never happened in terms, because the cases kept increasing and more throughout the whole state of Minnesota. And of course, the first thing we did when we closed, we brought in this very comprehensive cleaning process, and we stayed with that the whole time we were closed, making sure that all of our business were thoroughly cleaned and continued. And we brought in the thermal testing as well. And we set up a protocol, of course, that everyone had to go through the testing area. And if you had a certain temperature, they would ask you to step aside, and then you would get another test. And if your temperature was still at a certain level, they would even not allow you to come in. And of course, everybody is required to wear the mask, and all the staff are. And then so now that we're open, people are walking around asking people to put that mask on if they don't have it on. And of course, we're not going to open up the buffet. We thought that was going to be one of the areas that was going to be very dangerous, so we didn't do that as well. And we also had, on the government side, our Commissioner of Health and Human Services issued an order that everyone on government property had to wear masks. And so that applied to our businesses as well. So every day we monitor that. We have our Tribal Emergency Committee that looks at the statistics. Part of the casino staff are part of that committee. And so they meet on a regular basis to analyze all the data as we're going forward. And because the concern is in Minnesota, we haven't reached our peak yet. So what does that mean? And so we're also concerned about that. And even our membership, we sent out a survey to all of our membership to ask them and say, here's our options of reopening. And it was interesting, probably over 80% of the members did say to open, and we also did 60 plus, and 85% of those said we would like to see the casinos open again. So we wanted to make sure that if we were going to make this decision, that the band membership was on board with that. And they gave us the indication to move forward to see what that means. And again, as I mentioned, we are on a daily call with Governor Tim Walz and Lieutenant Peggy Flanagan to make sure that whatever the data they have from their health department, that we're aware of it and we move forward.
I mean, how fortunate are the tribes of Minnesota to have Peggy Flanagan, as a lieutenant governor of Minnesota? How fortunate are you guys? That's just incredible, isn't it?
Both Tim Walz and Peggy Flanagan are such a good team, and even Governor Walz said that we closed down, and the other casinos, tribal governments were talking about it as well. And he asked them if they were going to do it, but he said, as a sovereign, it is your decision. I'm just providing you with the information that we have at the state of Minnesota to help you with your decision. But he said at the end of the day, it's always your decision as a sovereign. So that's very positive in terms of how we move forward working with the state of Minnesota on these issues.
On a real side note, I just got a question, and I think it's very relevant. Has the recent riots, have they had an impact on you at all? And what kind of effect has this had on your business so far?
Yes, we have businesses in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. And again, we are on daily calls with the state of Minnesota about the situation. So there's what they call them as situation calls. And so there was intel that Franklin Avenue is in Minneapolis is where it's prominent. A lot of Indian people live. We have a lot of our Indian organizations. We have a business as well. And there's Little Earth, the housing development where majority of the Indian people live in those housing projects. And so we were told that there was going to be some turmoil there. And so we put a call out in the state of Minnesota, and many people from the different reservations showed up on Franklin Avenue, and they've been protecting the area. And it prevented a lot of damage from that community. And we had someone protecting our own tribal members. We have a bank branch down on Franklin Avenue, and they stayed there all night long, protecting the area and the other businesses. And they left at 6:00 a.m. that morning, and that's when they came and busted our windows right in the daylight. But they weren't able to get in. We had a strong security system there, and they broke the front lobby area, but that was about it. And
Wow.
even today, the protectors are still down on Franklin Avenue in an area, making sure that no damage is being done to our organizations and the Little Earth Housing Project. And a lot of communication is going on. And so again, we even have those regular calls with the Commissioner of Public Safety and any of these departments. Every day we have that conversation with one of these departments at the state of Minnesota, unemployment, whatever that may be. So it's a
Melanie,
good working relationship.
I read all those stories about the protectors and everyone going down and the White Earth housing project and stuff like that, Little Earth, White Earth. And so, hearing it come from you, it's just really kind of mind blowing, but it does drive home the point, and that, we as Native American people have always had to take care of ourselves.
Right.
If you wouldn't have sent the protectors down there, you wouldn't have had protection, and if we don't step up for ourselves, and this goes back into tribal gaming too, that the revenue of tribal gaming goes down is for social services and protection for law enforcement and stuff like that. Matthew, in Oklahoma, the situation is different. Melanie touched on it briefly about a secondary outbreak and the importance of that. And you and I had a really interesting conversation the other day, which was, and what you said, and I thought was just so profound. What you said was that we are not just opening, but we're trying to stay open, and we're trying to figure out a business model that will allow us in case there's a secondary outbreak. Could you reiterate on that some more?
Yeah,
That's very
appreciate
profound.
that, Victor. So that has always been our goal here is, not just figure out how to open. And we did a lot of work on trying to facilitate those conversations. And I'm sure every tribal government has had those. We have task force at each individual tribe that's looking at this. We've only opened limited facilities that are open still. Not every facility in Oklahoma is opened yet. Testing, there were several tribes. I know here at Chickasaw, we tested everyone that works at our gaming facilities, including the vendors that were there setting up. Over 6,800 people got a COVID-19 test to make sure everybody's well. We have different things set up, self-evaluation every morning. You got to fill out an electronic form, 5 questions, take your temperature, before you show up at work. If something's not right there, you're advised to stay home. You get calls. There's lots of that information. At the Oklahoma Gaming Association, we created a suggested guidelines for reopening. We have a list of vendors on there on our webpage where you start looking at, different PPE providers. But, doing all that work to get open is hard work, and that's all great. But it's all for nothing if we can't figure out how to stay open. And that's the goal that keeps getting reiterated to me, not just to get open, but to stay open. And how do we make sure that we stay open in order, to have some revenue coming in to help the tribes, fulfill their goals on, providing programs and services for their citizens, to their employees, and all the partner communities that surround us, that have come to rely upon so many of our charities, and giving to their processes as well to make sure that they're staying afloat. So, it is very much an ecosystem there that relies on different parts. And if they're not all in sync, if they're not all working together, then what ends up happening is we're going to have an issue somewhere. And that is something that I heard from a lot of our game vendors and a lot of our smaller facilities in Oklahoma, which make up the vast majority of our gaming facilities. They said, we can close, and we think we should close. And now they've undertaken all this time, energy, and expense to get back open. And they're telling me, I don't know if I can close again. How do we come back from that a second time? We cannot survive that. That's why it's so important that we have these, measures in place, that we continue to have these conversations. We continue to watch the data, and, to make sure that if you're open, that we're taking all the necessary precautions that we can to ensure that we remain open in a way that is still safe for our employees and our patrons, to provide some of that revenue that's coming back. Because gaming does, for a lot of tribes, it is the big tax base. It is what funds a large part of the governments.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that I'd like to take this next part. I'd like it to two of the most important things I believe about what we're going to be talking about today, which is one, employee safety, and B, the business of gaming. So first of all, one of the things that I heard, I had a conversation with my friend Eddie Yoko yesterday, and Eddie works with Sequana, and he told me of the difficulty his tribe was having in procuring PPE. Are you guys experiencing equipment and stuff like that? Are you guys experiencing the same thing? And how is that hindering your progress?
Well, Victor, I'll just jump back on some of the things that Matt was saying. As we think about reopening and the safety measures, we do know, science is showing that wearing masks help and all of that sort of things, social distancing. What I saw in Vegas and what there's a lot of complaint about is that while these measures are supposedly in place, people aren't behaving, the guests aren't behaving. So we are going to be very firm. We beefed up our security team, and we're going to make sure that there's social distancing, everybody wears a mask, and that sort of thing, so that we can stay open. Should there be, and I just read this morning that there's 19 states where the COVID is on the rise again. So back to what Matt was saying, the big question is, how do we set up our institution so that it can stay open in the face of whatever may happen with the COVID? Because if we have to close down again and we're not strict, and then we have to open again, just the closing and opening, what can break us? So we've got to figure out a way where whatever happens, we are following something that so far we know stops the spread of the virus.
Last week, Jason Giles, executive director of the National Indie Gaming Association, just gave a really great interview, and talking about the working with the government and going out there. And there's a lot of people who are really on our side too, although there was a bunch of people missing and stuff like that. But like I said, this lack of PPE is one of those things that could hinder our staying open. And the interesting thing now, I think, as you guys all see it, I think everyone's coming out of the woodwork with masks and cleaners and stuff. So I guess hopefully this means that there is the equipment out there that we do need to open. I know in California, the governor spent $1 billion on just PPE, which was pretty insane. So the question now is gaming. I think now this is the big question in the industry is now, what is the experience in the casino now? Matt, you told me something absolutely fascinating yesterday. And could you repeat? We had a conversation about gaming in the floor, and you were telling me about poker tables. Now, Melanie said, the buffets are closed for right now. And, I had a little witty aside last week, or at least I thought it was witty, that they moved the sneeze guards from the buffet over to the poker tables. And so you mentioned we were talking about this yesterday. Could you reiterate what you're telling me about gambling and poker?
I mean, there are several of our facilities. I think table games is one of those where you're not seeing consistency across the board. Some facilities have opened, but the vast majority of folks have decided not to open those, or as I stated before, nothing's open 100% yet. Everything has limitations on it. We've had a couple of tribes here in Oklahoma. They've shifted their business like you've seen other businesses do, where they're now manufacturing some of that protective equipment, and they're running their table games. But I think that one of the issues when we start talking about truly gaming, and I know this is true for Oklahoma, I guess it's true for other folks, but table games work for us more like an amenity here in Oklahoma. There are very few facilities that generate a profit straight from their table games, and so that's been a difficult decision on how to bring that back, in what way that we can still socially distance, that we're providing safety to our patrons and our employees, but a way that also makes sense from an economic point of view. Because of that, those things that are looked at as amenities, whether you're talking about that buffet or the table games, or some of the other things in the facilities that are not quite back yet, how are we going to take on some of those guidelines to make sure that they're open in the safest way possible, but also continue to offer the products that your patron want to see that when they come into. Each property is unique. Each property probably does something a little bit different than others, but there's a whole lot of ways to make sure that you can stay safe in that regard. But for table games specifically, here at Chickasaw, we haven't opened up our table games yet, and they do make up, at some of our properties, a large footprint there. But we don't feel comfortable yet bringing folks in for that activity yet. There's other facilities that do and have modified their operating procedures in a way that they feel comfortable. And I think that's important to note, that each government, each operation, has to make that decision for themselves. And just like we say, in normal times, patrons are going to come to where they feel comfortable, where they're entertained, and they're going to make that choice with their dollars. We can only go so far in making sure that everything is done in the safest way possible. But I think Indian country has provided a great example of being leaders in this way. We closed down before a lot of the commercial gaming facilities across the country closed down, and we've opened up before a lot of them. And I think they're using Indian country as an example to show you the right way to do that.
And actually, you reminded me, I was meant to ask you, you mentioned earlier that you have these health and safety guidelines on the Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association website.
Well, yes, sir.
Yeah, that's very important, Matt. I think that's important that we share this information, and we're all in this together. We're all experiencing, like you said, there's a little difference in what each tribe is doing and the amenities they're providing, but we're all in the same boat. Melanie, what has it been like since you've opened your casinos? What is the gambling experience like now over in your two properties?
What we looked at like year to date, and after we opened up, we were actually we had increased guests at our Hinckley property, and we were up I think 1,000 more visitors than the previous year. And then at our Mille casino, we were down 300 visitors, and so we're tracking that as well. Making sure. And so normally the day we opened up, and what we did too is kind of interesting. We opened up the day early, and we just only had that for our tribal members, just to give them a little, a private come back to the casino if you're interested, even though we're asking our elders if they would please stay home for the time being, till we kind of find out what the trend is there and how it's going to work out. But so far we're normal as we were a year ago, And so to me, I think that's kind of interesting. I think people were desperate to get out, and the casinos are a place that people use as entertainment and part of their daily lives. And when we opened up, they were there. We sent out surveys to even our guests and said, if we open, are you willing to come back? And there was a high response that yes, they were going to be there. And we also did a TV ad a couple of weeks before that, just to get some interest going again about that. That was a little marketing kind of a project. And looking at the numbers, it's people are wanting to come back and be normal, even though like they have to wear the mask. And even you talked about the blackjack tables, we're limiting 3 guests to a table, and the dealers have to have gloves and mask or shields on to participate in that. So the people are there and they're ready. They're ready to go back to normal.
So, you know, one of the issues that I've noticed when talking to people in the industry is that the big issue seems to be once you get people in, it's keeping them to keep their masks on, keeping them to safe distancing. You know, I think one of the things that a lot of people right now in the industry are very concerned about is in Las Vegas, they opened up this week, but masks are only mandatory for employees and not for customers. You know, so that's kind of a little scary for me. But so, you know, Melanie, I have a question here for you. And actually it's 2-part. And first question is how are you handling bingo right now at your properties? I know bingo has always been a traditional big game for us and stuff like that. I know my tribe we're holding. How is Mille Lacs dealing with this?
Currently, we're not operating bingo, and they're planning on it. And instead of using the normal bingo hall, we're gonna take that into the convention area so that there's more space in between the patrons.
Right.
And so currently it's not open yet. Same thing, mask, a lot of sanitizer out there. The staff are wiping down the tables on a regular basis, and they have to wear the gloves and the mask as well.
Right. Question, and Greg, this goes for you too. So my tribe, when we opened up, we went smoke free. Are you entertaining those ideas, Greg? Are you entertaining that idea? Now, you know, and also, Greg, I mean, I've been to your property. You know, when you opened up, one of the things that you did, you put that big glass wall that separated your hotel from your casino. And you know, as you know, I love that effect. It created a delineation. It stopped the cigarette smoke, and you had a very quiet, serene place when you walked in the hotel. What will we expect when we come back to when Graton opens up?
Victor, you'll expect exactly the same. I mean, we have a big area of slots where it's non-smoking in a separate room, but we will have the smoking. We will be serving drinks and alcohol. But the bars will be, the bars will be open. But what fun is a bar when you sit 6 feet from somebody who you're having a beer or something with? And we're going to really adhere to the strict rules. But we will be smoking and basically everything the same, except people sitting far apart. We are going to, as I said before, going to require that the masks are on. We're beefing up our security because we don't want, again, to have the kinds of problems that Vegas is running into, where people will come in and take off their mask, they'll clamor around together. We're going to be pretty strict, and we're going to stick to that, again, with the notion of should the virus come back in strong form, we'll be able to stay open.
Well, you know, recently the Winnebago tribe announced that they're going to be opening up their Winnevegas casino in Iowa, but they kept it closed longer than expected because of the outbreaks of the coronavirus on the reservation, and also the fact that a bunch of tribal members are employees at the casino. So they waited, and they felt it was safer for their tribal members and their elders if they held off on it. And you know, that was very commendable. And like you're doing, Greg, you know, you could have opened up a couple of days ago, but you've chose to not to do it. And I commend you for doing that and doing the right thing, even though I know there's a lot of pressure and everyone wants to get back to work and stuff like that. Matt, what are you guys seeing with the openings? What kind of lessons can you share with Indian country with your openings in Oklahoma?
Well, I think, when we first started seeing the first facilities, and we've had waves, we had a handful of facilities open. I think a lot of operators watched what they did, lessons learned. They've been very open, inviting people in, sharing information, sharing what worked, what didn't work. And so as we, week to week, as more facilities have opened, we've gotten better each week, I think, at what that was. Early on, it was the small things, lots of time and attention inside facilities, but because we've had a limited occupancy by choice, that created, lines outside, people milling around. And so at the beginning, we had to figure out, okay, how do you onboard those people? Early on that first week, it was, okay, let's social distance out there. We got to share staff out there to make sure people stay 6 feet apart. Now you're seeing similar to what you have at restaurants, electronic reservations where people, they show up, they're asking to be let in, and then we send them messaging before they're there to let them know when they can come in, and they walk through those protocols of getting a temperature check, of answering some questions, and to make sure that they meet all of those standards before they're let into the facility. I think we've saw, to Chairman's point, you have to look at each part of the facility to make sure you're comfortable with, one, having that open, and two, if it is open, how is that open? Can you open the bar? Or I know Ms. Benjamin mentioned earlier, the buffet. Is that the best place to start from? We don't feel comfortable yet, so we're not opening the buffet. We're serving food, but we're bringing you food. We're not having you stand there. How does that work? I know different facilities in Oklahoma, some of them have designated places, and again, occupancy level, where smoking is allowed outdoors at the facility, but indoors, not smoking allowed right now. You have other facilities that have a smoking or a non-smoking portion of the facility. So again, lots of individual nuances depending on the operation, the size of the facility, the layouts. For example, WinStar Casino, 25% occupancy, but our gaming casino floor there is over 370,000 square feet. But we decided to convert our multi-purpose facility into gaming space just to space those machines out further. So again, increasing occupancy a little bit, but also enforcing that idea of social distancing with your mask on, of course, both employees and our patrons, but trying to figure out new ways of how to do that. How do you make that patron comfortable enough to come in, and what are these little things that you didn't know on day one, but on day 4 become abundantly clear. And then, at least here in Oklahoma, we have weekly calls where people can jump on those calls, and we can share those stories, we can share that information, and we can also understand why a particular operation or tribe may be doing something different than the other folks around them. Try to make sure we try to stay as consistent as possible. And if somebody has something they're doing better than everybody else, that's what we're moving towards to adopt. Just trying to be as communicative as possible across our industry here in Oklahoma to make sure that, we're being as safe as possible.
Matt, I'm so glad you brought that up, because, I think organizations like Oklahoma Indian Gaming Association and the National Indian Gaming Association and the rest of these trade groups have provided a leadership that has just been second to none. I've been very impressed, and I'm including you on this when I say this, Matt. I just know from my perspective at Pechanga.net, it's just been very heartening to see the leadership rise to the occasion, and especially in this world of uncertainty right now. That is very reassuring. Now, so I guess, we have about 10 minutes left. I guess, the question will be, I know. So what's going on with entertainment? When can we expect entertainment? And hotels, how are these going to be phased in? Are these a part of, are you open now? I know with my tribe, like kind of going, circling back, my tribe stopped smoking, but you can go outside and you can smoke. There's benches and there's places and there's the distancing outside and stuff like that. But everyone's looking to get back to this new normal, and that's what we're trying to define here. So Greg, what about your hotel? What are you thinking about the hotel?
We are going to open the hotel, not the spa right away. You know, we have a big, nice spa, but we are opening the hotel, and we're kind of going top down, the first three or the top 3 floors. So when we do a soft opening next week in the beginning, our big players will get the hotel rooms. But I'll tell you, we've been swamped. I mean, we put them on, we put 200 rooms up, and they were gone in an hour with our.
Wow.
So I mean, people, if I walk out my front door, all I hear is, "When's the casino going to open?" But we are going to open the hotel and go down there. Obviously, we cannot open the ballroom or have concerts and the things that we've had. That's gone for the time being. The pool area will be, it's going to be strange. The chaise lounges and everything 6 feet apart. I don't know how people are going to behave, but.
It looks like DJs are going to be the only ones working for a while. You know, all my brethren musicians and stuff were all, you know, I had a conversation with my dear friend James Raymond last night, and James is a professional musician, and you know, they can't tour, they can't go anywhere. My friends and Ben Harper and Juan and those guys can't go on the road. So everyone is, you know, waiting to see when they're going to do entertainment. Now I posted 2 articles the other day. Cabazon announced yesterday that they're going to start doing entertainment. The socially distanced entertainment, I don't know what it works, but when they do, I'll be over there to see what it is. And then I believe in another one, in West Virginia, they announced yesterday they're going to be doing some entertainment also. So those are going against the tide right now. I think everyone is like with you, we're waiting. It's going to be, I guess, in the 4th segment of the opening, you know, and especially in California. So how do you see that happening for the tribes? And, you know, I had a really interesting conversation yesterday because they talked about entertainment. That's one of those things that brings in thousands and thousands of people at a time. Is there a safe way to do this, or are we just gonna, you know, wait this thing out too? And the question's open to anyone, even the audience.
And Victor, I mean, from what I hear in Oklahoma, I think that's one of the amenities that you will see come back slower than others. I've already seen a variety of facilities, you know, postponing shows, and they're pushing them back to the fall time frame, hopeful that the data we have then is different than what we have now. Because I think people are uncertain of how to bring groups together like that in a safe way right now that they feel comfortable on. So I mean, for entertainment purposes, which has been one of those anchors for a lot of tribal gaming facilities forever, you know, it is going to figure out how do you do that. And my dear friend Jess Green, who's walked on several years ago, used to tell me all the time, you know, Matt, as a young attorney, he'd say, I never really want to be first, but I really like being a close second. You know, and that sticks in my mind a lot, because I think, you know, at some point somebody's going to jump out there and everybody's going to watch and try to decide, you know, what worked and what didn't. But, you know, unfortunately, I think entertainment is one of those ones that are just going to be slower coming back.
Melanie, do you agree with that?
Was that
About
me?
entertainment, do you believe entertainment is also the same thing? It's going to be phased in, but on the tail end of the opening?
Yes, we've actually scheduled some of the outdoor concerts later in the summer. So we'll see how that works in terms of, because we have this Rock Fest, it's called, in September, and that's a crazy time where people are just unbelievable. So I am just I guess I'm going to need a lot of reassurance to make sure that what kind of safety protocols that we have in place are going to be followed. Once you have a little mix of alcohol, people, you know, like to enjoy themselves a little more when they're listening to their favorite entertainers. So that's going to be a big test there as well.
So I guess those sneezing competitions are going to be out for a while, right? I used to compete competitively, but not anymore. So obviously, deviated 70s. I don't want to talk about it. Well, you know what? We have time for one more question, and I'm going to take one for, and like will not be happening. I just got smaller scale live events are scheduled to return at Fantasy Springs in Indio this week, although large events will not be happening. So they're starting to bring in concerts, like what we'll see. You know, you'll start to see, you know, the DJs and hopefully the bands will eventually get back in there also. You know, I guess now the main question here, I guess the final question is, so what do you see the new normal as being now in the next, let's just go for the next month. Melanie, let's start with you. You have your 2 casinos opening. What is the new normal and what will the customers be seeing now in a month?
Well, I think they're going to see what they're seeing today as they come in to get their temperature, that thermal temperature, also the requirement of the mask, and of course hand sanitizers all over in the casino, no smoking, limited food venues and how that is going to be serviced, and the face shields, all of those, limited ability at the hotels. Associates also have to go through that strong protocol every time they walk through those doors, limited openings so that you just can't walk in any door to get into the casinos now. Now you have to go through the front door to make sure that we take your temperature and see that. And what I notice a lot when I'm out and about, there's not many people in the Menards or the grocery stores that really care to have a mask. And they may walk in with one, but they take it off as soon as they're in. So there's a lot of security walking around on the floor, reminding people to put that mask on. And I think as we go along, that's going to happen on a regular basis. And when we get a vaccine for this virus, then I think that people are still going to want to make sure that they wear a mask, that are concerned about the healthy situations and other people, making sure they don't have that person sneeze on them as you talk about. So I think that's how it's going to be.
Well, you know, that seems to be one of the issues, is that, you know, once they come in and people get a little, you know, tired and, you know, then, and so that seems to be the big thing, is that we have to keep going in and making sure that the customers are following the rules and procedures. Matt, my same questions to you. You know, how do you see the new normal in Oklahoma in the next month?
So over the next month, you know, gaming facilities have become very good at being data driven. And this is just more data they have to take into account on making decisions. I think you're going to see slow, methodical, measured expansions, but constant checking, you know, to make sure everything is still, everybody's still comfortable with where they're at. And I think the other part of that is that, you know, tribes, gaming operations have to be ready to make changes if the science and data are indicating upticks or other worries that we have to be ready for. And, you know, hopefully that doesn't come. Hopefully we'll have that vaccine come and everybody will prescribe to CDC guidelines and we won't see that. But if it does, I think we have to be prepared for that as well. And so, you know, it's just not figuring out how do we operate over the next 30 days or 60 days, but also, you know, when that uptick happens, if it happens, how are we going to respond to that? And that's all part of that. We're not just trying to get open. We need to figure out how to stay open.
Greg, I guess question goes to you. You know, right now we have the tribe, the Calusa, the casino has an announcement right now that they had a customer coming in there doing tracing. You know, how, as you opening up, you know, what can we expect to see at your casino? You know,
the same kinds of things where you're going to be stopped at the door, do the thermal check, you're going to be asked questions, told to keep the mask on, everything that Matt and Melanie have talked about. So those things are definitely going to be in place. We are able to trace, for the most part, remember, with our surveillance and then our players' cards and things like that. So I think we're in good shape. to open and go forward. I think the biggest challenge is going to be, and it's been suggested by both Melanie and Matt, is security, is making sure that people are following the rules, and people are going to have to follow the rules. And again, you know, a couple drinks and people get tired or whatever, and they get a little sloppy and that sort of thing. And so Graton might not be as much fun in certain ways as it used to be. But I predict with even half or a little more than half of the machines up, I sense for all of us, the win per units on those machines will be bigger. People want to.
And you know, that's a really good way to end this. And you know what? And I, you know, I'd like to wrap this up in saying, you know, part of the reason we had this session is because there is a politicalization of health and safety standards. You know what I mean? And it's just, it really breaks my heart to see something so important diminished so badly. And I think it's up to us as Native Americans and as leaders to step up into that void. And that's what I'm seeing. And I think this is what we were trying to do. And I think this is what we accomplished. And also I want to tell the listeners out there that, you know, if you need to share this information, you can email me at victor@pechanga.net. I will be gladly to answer your questions about health and safety standards. Like Matt said, they have their standards up on their website. So it's very important that we share this information and that we're not in this alone. You know, we're just all in different phases of this reopening. So Melanie, thank you so much. I really appreciate Matt. You know, you're a mensch. Thank you very much, my friend. Much appreciated. Greg, can't wait to see you soon. Hopefully when this thing is over, social distancing is over, I can come up and give you a big hug, my friend, because I miss you. And to our readers, I want to thank you very much. Next week, please check in. We're going to be doing a special new normal, talking about the sports betting in California and the new legislation with Chairman Maccaro from Pechanga and Chairman James Siva from the California Nations Indian Game Association. So this will be the definitive statement on that issue, and I think you guys want to be in here. So thank you very much. Thank you to the readers, the listeners, excuse me, Pechanga.net thinking. And thank you to our tribal leaders. So thanks a lot. Patty, do you have anything to say?
Nope, I just want to remind everyone that you will get a copy of this recording. And a thank you email will be sent to you tomorrow. And also this will be posted on the IndianGamingTradeShow.com website under the education tab. So you could refer back to that at any point to listen to any of our webinar series. So thanks everyone.
Yeah, so if you need anything, we'll be there. So thank you very much. We'll see you guys next week. Appreciate this. Bye.
Thank you.